Identifying and using least common multiple. You guys remember least common multiple? Multiples go bigger than the numbers, okay? So when you're thinking of a multiple, it's that number or larger. So it says a multiple of a number is the product of that number and any non-zero whole number. So when we're thinking a non-zero whole number, that would be like, if I start out with 2, multiples of 2, 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 8, 10, 12. Those are multiples. Someone said, well, what about 2 and 1? Those are factors of 2. So the difference between the word factor and multiple. So a multiple is shared by 2 numbers or more is called a common multiple. The smallest of all the common multiples is called our least. So what I'd like you to do is right behind 2 and 3, I want you to make a list of your common multiples. So we're going to list all the multiples of 2. So 2 times 1 would be 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, keep going. List about 10 of them. Okay? Do you agree with my list? Yours looks something like that? Okay. Now do your 3s. So if I was listing the 3s, if you were going to start me out, we'd have what? 3, 6, 9. We're going to have 12, right? 15, 18, 21, 24, right? And notice behind these, I can put these dots because it keeps going, right? It never ends as long as you keep multiplying. So it says what numbers are common on both lists. Those are called our common multiples, okay? So they both have 6, right? They both have 12, right? They both have 18. Those are called my common multiples, right? So, will there be more of them besides those? Yeah, so we had 6, 12, 18. The next one would have been 24, right? Keep going. Okay, those are my common. And the smallest of this is, smallest of my list is 6, right? 6 is called my least common multiple. Okay? So what you're going to do on this next page down in your notes, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make the list for those 2 sets of numbers. First, you're going to put the number 5. Then you're going to put the number 8. List your common multiples. Here you're going to put 2. You're going to put 3. And you're going to hit 5. Write your list. So you always have to start with the first number that you're given, right? So I have 5 and 8, then I'm going to have 10, and then 15, right? So make your list, please. Do that right now. Okay? The first thing that 5 and 8 have in common is 40, right? They have nothing before 40 that they have in common. So because the first thing that they have in common when I make my list, it is actually 5 times 8, which my least common multiple is 40. So right below that, make sure you write least common multiple is 40. So when we look at this list of our 2, 3, and 5, okay? Someone said, can't I just, instead of making a list, Mrs. Townsend, can't I just take, 2 times 3 I know is 6? And 6 and 5 have nothing in common. Can't I just take 6 times 5? Isn't that what this one is? Right? When we take a look at this one, our least common multiple again is 2 times 3, which is 6. 6 times 5 gives us 30. So again, my least common multiple that I'm looking at here was 30. Here it was 40. Did 5 and 8, do those have any common factors? Is there anything that I can multiply that multiplies to give me 5 and 8? Is there anything that multiplies together to give me both 5 and 8? Like 8 is 2 times 2 times 2, and 5 is 5 times 1. They have nothing in common. So, if these 2 numbers have nothing in common, you need to just multiply them together. 5 times 8, least common multiple is 40. 2, 3, and 5 have no common factors. You're going to multiply 2 times 3 times 5 to give us 30. What if I give you the numbers 10 and 15. And I ask you, what's the least common multiple of 10 and 15? Do I want to take 10 times 15? No. I want to take, if I'm trying to find my least common multiple, I know it has to have a 10. Please sit in your desk and try not to. So I'm going to have 10 times what? What's different in 15 that's not in 10? Well, 10 is 5 times 2, right? And 15 is 5 times 3. So I have to take it times 3. And my least common multiple, please write this on your paper. If I have 10 and 15, my least common multiple is going to be 30. How did I get it? I looked at my factors of 10, 5 and 2, and the factors of 15. I am not taking 10 times 15 like I did with the other ones. So, I want you to put down another problem. We're going to find the least common multiple of 6 and 8. If I want to find the least common multiple of 6 and 8, it is not 48. It's smaller than that, right? I don't want to take 6 times 8. So I look at 6, which is 3 times 2. And I look at 8, which is 2 times what? 2 times 4. So when I think of my least common multiple, I have to have 6 times what's different here. 4. It already has a 2, right? This 2 is the same in both. What's different is that it has a 4. And 6 times 4 gives us 24. That's my least common multiple. Now, why is this important? You're going to be starting to do fraction problems like this. So, on the top of the next page, on top, page 24. You feeling okay? Okay, no more faces. So when I'm looking at this one, it says, you can use least common multiple to help us make equations easier to solve. Find the least common multiple of our 3 denominators. When you look at our 3 denominators, we have 5, we have 3, and 3. So the least common multiple, what we are looking up, of 5 and 3. What's the least common multiple of 5 and 3? Should be, if we're looking at it, Abby, should be 15. 5 times 3, right? We can multiply those two. So it says, well, what is this new equation going to look like? Okay? So that means we have to multiply every part of this equation by 15. I'm going to have you do that down here. So we're going to write 15 times, put the x in the numerator, over 5. Plus, we're going to put 15 times 2/3 equals 15 times 8/3. So, Dan, we're on our notes. Okay? So, as we look at this problem, I could take 15 times 3, but it gets kind of big. How many times does 5 go into 15? 3 times. So, I now have 5 goes in here once, and 5 goes into 15 3 times. So my new equation is going to be what? 3 times 3x, which is 9x. Here we're looking at 15 over 1. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 15 how many times? 5. Since a fraction is 15 over 1, you could take 15 times 8 on your calculator, but it's easier to say, oh, 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 15 5 times. So we had 9x. What was this middle one? Plus what? 5 times 2 is 10. Equals, what are we going to have back here? Equal 40. So my new equation, 9x plus 10 equals 40. Is that easier to solve for most of you? So let's go down and solve this new equation. So right below this, write 9x plus 10 equals 40. If I was looking at solving this, Hunter, my first step to get 9x by itself is to do what? Subtract 10. Matt, once I've subtracted 10 from both sides, I'm now going to do what?
Divide
So I have 9x is equal to 30, and I'm going to divide both sides by 9. Now, I can leave my answer as 30 over 9. 30 over 9 simplifies also to what? What number goes into both of those? Yes. 3 goes into both of them. How many times does 3 go into 30? 10 times. So if I divide these both by 3, right? My common denominator of those two. So 3 goes in there, and I'd have 10 over 3. So when I'm looking at your answer, I would take 10 over 3 for an answer, just like on the quiz the other day that we took. I would take that as 3 1/3, or I'd take 3.3 repeating. I would prefer, since you start with a fraction, that you answer your question with one of these two. This one is okay, but this is how I would like you to leave your answer. Either as 10 over 3 or 3 1/3. Questions? Solving these, we want to not have a fraction. So, what does 6, 10, and 30, what number, what is my least common multiple that 6, 10, and 30 can all multiply into? It would be, So I got to start with the lowest number. It has to be bigger than 6. 6 times 10 is too big. Does 10 go into 30? Does 6 go into 30? 6 times 5, our least common multiple, we want to multiply everything by 30. When you look at this one, 4, 6, and 9, what is going to be my least common multiple? So this is where I was looking at those ones at the beginning. I know I have to have 4 times what? Has to have a 4 in it. What does 6 have in it that 4 doesn't have? It has a 3. What does 9 have? 9 has how many 3s? 3. What equals 9? 3. 3 has 2 3s. So this one has 2 3s. This one has 1 3 in it too. This one has 2 2s. So what should my least common multiple be? 4 times. This 12. Does 9 go into 12? 4 times 3? No. 9 does not divide into 12. So it can't be 12, right? It can't be 4 times 3. It has to be 4 times 9. 36. Does 4 go into 36? Does 6 go into 36? Does 9 go into 36? They all divide in there. So once you figure out what that least common multiple is, so I'm going to have you do that as you do your homework. You're going to list that right behind it. Now that's what you're going to multiply everything by. So we are going to take 30 over 1 times, and again, put the x in the numerator. So we're going to call it 1x over 6, plus we're going to put 30 over 1 times 1/10 equals 30 over 1 times 29/30. So as I start solving this one, Levi, what do I notice? How many times does 6 go into 30? Okay. So 6 goes into 6 once. It goes into 30 how many times? 30 divided by 6, what did you say? 5. So we got 5. What's happening between this 5 and 1x? Should we add those together and get 6x? Or do we multiply them? We are multiplying. So this is 5 times 1x. That gives me 5x, right? The next one, Ashley. 10 goes into 30 and 10. 10 goes into 10 how many times? Once. 10 goes into 30 how many times? 3. So we're going to now have 5x plus 3 times 1. 3 times 1 is going to leave us with just 3. Okay. Audrey, if we look at that next one, 30 goes into 30 how many times? 1. So this is going to become a 1. This one's going to become a 1. And Dan, we are left with? 29. Next step, Dan. Much easier problem, right? Make sure you write this down. If you do it with us, then you'll be ready to go to the next part, okay? So, what are we going to do next?
Subtract 3.
Subtract 3. Much easier problem now, right? Whereas before, when we had that 1/10, that gets kind of ugly getting common denominators. So, your goal when you do your homework tonight, we get 5x equals, in this case, when we do our subtraction.
26.
For sure, what did you have?
26.
26. We are going to divide both sides, if we are looking at this, by 5. And my solution, Caitlin, is going to be what? 26 over 5. We're going to leave it like 26 over 5. Some of you don't like improper fractions like that. You like to change it to a mixed number. No problem. Change it to a mixed number. Okay? 5 and a fifth. Again, could we do a check with this? If I wanted to check 26 fifths, and I think that's my answer, I would go back, and if I was going to do my check, this is where some of you on your calculators, grab your calculator. We're going to put 1 divided by 6, right? That was the original problem. Times 26 divided by 5 plus 1 divided by 10. Put that whole thing in your calculator. You want to just check, is it the same as 29 divided by 30, which came out to equal 9.6 repeated. 0.96 repeating when we got this. When you put this whole thing in your calculator, you didn't get 0.96 repeating. So check that. Anyone get 0.96 repeating? Okay? So you're putting it in your calculator, right? And this is telling us, this isn't telling us that 0.96 is the answer, right? It's just telling us that this worked to replace the x and get the same thing on both sides of the equal sign, okay? So when you put it in your calculator, that's how you want to do that check. Now, I'm not going to have you check all these, but I just wanted to make sure you were understanding. So we're going to start this next one. We wrote down that our least common multiple was 36. So we're going to start the problem and we're going to multiply each problem by 30, each part of this equation by 36. So 36 over 1 times, how am I going to write that, Olivia, as what? 3 what? 3x over 4. Okay? Would you keep going for me? Plus, what do I want to write down next? 36 over 1. Was this a plus here? No. Make sure we keep that as a minus, right? 1 over 6. Okay, keep going. 2 9. All right, John, are you ready? Okay, help me out. What am I going to do? 4 and 36. This 4 becomes a 1. 9. And get 27x. Okay, Patrick, you ready to help me with that middle one?
Yeah.
By 36 by 6, nice, and get what? 6, and this becomes a? What, how many, 6 divided by 6 is what? 1. Right, that's all right. See, that's a common thing that people do. They always put a 0 here, but that's a 1. So what are we going to write, Patrick? Minus what? Minus 6, okay? Sam, you ready? Okay. Tell me what to do. Okay, divide both 36 and 9 by what number? No, what's down here? 9. So I agree, this becomes a 4, and the 9 becomes a 1. And what are you going to write down? 6 or 8 back here? 8. Do you see where some people might put a 6? They add those two. This is time, so just be really careful that you're putting that multiplication sign, okay? So we're going to continue solving. What are we going to do? Solve for 27x. So add 6 to both sides, right? Most of them are coming out kind of ugly, aren't they? So when we're solving this one, as I'm doing that, what are we going to have, Riley? 6 plus 8. How about 14? I'm not sure what you did there. But 14. All right. So now, Joe, what are we going to do? Divide by 27. And, Mr. Berg, can we simplify? number that goes into 14 and 27? Think of anything? Because you almost think 7 because it's 14, but it doesn't, right? So if we are looking at our answer, are we done? 14 over 27. X equals 14 over 27. If you did put it in your calculator and you wanted to do the check with this, you could put this in, but I would prefer, again, since we are working with fractions, keep your answer as a fraction, okay? So when we are doing the problem, keep your answer as a fraction. So we are looking at this. All right. So if you look at that next page, do they have more of those type of problems?
Yeah.
Okay. So instead of doing both of these, we're going to just do the first one. And I'm going to show you the answer for the second one just so that you can have that. But we are only going to do the first one because we got to get to that other stuff with decimals. Okay. So I look at it, 7, 14, and 42. Tonight when you do your assignment, the first thing I want you to do is behind this, tell me least common multiple, and we are talking about our denominators. So it has to be, you want to look at the biggest number of the three. So I look at 42. Can 7 go into 42? Yeah. Can 14 divide into 42? Yeah. If you're not sure, take your calculator and type in 42 divided by 14. And it goes in there, right? So always look when you're finding least common multiple, look at the biggest of your three denominators, and it goes in there 3 times. So this is what I'm going to multiply everything by, okay? So if we are starting off, so if we're going to do that multiplication, right? So, you ready to tell me what? What are we going to have? 42 over 1 times what? 3, what am I doing with this x? So 3x, keep telling me what to write down, plus. Okay, write it at the same time as you're telling me. One more time, and then I'm going to put what?
42 over 1.
Times 19 over 42, nice job. Okay, so we're going to keep going, and we're going to have we start simplifying, right? 6 over 1, which means I'm now going to have what when I multiply? 18x. Aaron, you ready to keep going? 14 goes into 42 how many times did we just show on our calculator? And if you're not sure, divide it. 3. So we're going to cancel. So on your paper, cancel that. On your paper, go back and cancel the 42 and put a 6 because we don't really want to take 42 times 6 and divide by 7. So we have a 3 here. So what am I writing down, Aaron? Plus. Should I write? Here when I looked at that one, she took 6 times 3x and got 18x. So you said 14 goes into 42 3 times. What should I write down? Multiply. What am I going to do with this? Because I would take 3 times 3 to get 9, right? Okay, what are you going to do next? Go on. Which gives us? So I'm going to write down. I'm going to write down 19. You're ready? Okay. So now we're going to solve it, right? Easier to solve now. What are you going to do? Subtract 9. Once I've subtracted 9, Miss Qualley, what are you going to do next, Cameron? You're going to have what left? 18x. Equals 10. And if I'm finishing the problem, what am I going to do, Mom? Divide 18 by 10. Like put divide by 10 like this. 10 divided by 18. And this one divided by 18 also, right? Because our goal is to get 1x. And I can divide both these by 2. So I might have 5/9 for an answer. If you left 10/18, I would count that correct on your paper. If you simplified it and put 5/9, I would give you credit for that also. This is one of our repeating decimals. You remember that one from the beginning of the year? Repeating decimal as 0.5 repeating, right? 5/9. All right. So that's how we eliminate our fraction part. We're not going to do this next one. Here's the answer. If you're writing down that answer, if you needed more practice with these, but you're going to have 4 of them in your homework. And then I think what I'll have you do is with your homework, I'm going to have you make sure you go back and do this problem also. Okay? So do that one to get the right answer. But as you look at clearing fractions on the bottom, page 25, because when you have an equation with lots of decimals, you can solve it like normal, or you can clear the decimals by multiplying by a power of 10. So in each equation, what I want you to do is tell me what is the greatest number of decimal places. So in this first one, the greatest number of numbers behind my decimal point is 2. Please do that for the next 2. What's the greatest number behind? The next one is 1, right? So right now, tell me the greatest number behind, you have what? Oh no, there's more than 2 behind there. This one has 2, but this has how many? 4. Aaron, how about the next one? 3. So it says, well, what would you multiply by so you don't have any decimals? What power of 10? You would multiply by 10 to the second. What is 10 to the second? Not 20.
Oh,
100. 10 times 10. If you were multiplying this by 100, that means you're moving the decimal point over 2 places. You're going to move this one over 2 places. What would my new equation be? 350x, right? Taking 3.5 times 100. 2.45 times 100 would give me 245. Now, myself with the decimals, for a lot of you, I just do the decimals on your calculator. I just do it like normal. Like this one, what are you doing to solve this? You're going to divide on both sides by 350. Take out your calculators and put 245 divided by 350. If we do that, 245 divided by 350, what'd you end up with? 0.7. 0.7. Go back and do, did everyone get 0.7?
yeah.
So go back and put in 2.45 divided by 3.5, right? Because that's how you would have solved this one. You would have taken 2.45 and divided it by 3.5. Do you get the same answer?
Yeah.
So does it matter which way? No, but some people don't like to have decimals in their problem. This one, if you didn't want to have decimals, you would multiply by 10 to the first or 10. What would my new equation look like? It would look like 25x equals 24. Now, sometimes it doesn't matter that much, but like in this one, if I'm moving this one over 4 places, 10 to the 4th is the same as multiplying by a 1 followed by 4 zeros. That's what 10 to the 4th means. And what that really means here is you want to move this decimal 4 places, right? I want to move it over 4 places, and I need to move this one, the same number, 4 places. What is my new equation going to be if I'm moving them both over 4 places? The first one is going to be just for x, right? The second one, when I move it over, is going to be 500. In this one, we're multiplying and moving it over 3 places, okay? So when we write this, we want to write this as 10 to the 3rd. What is 10 to the 3rd as you're filling in your notes? That is 1,000. What does that mean in terms of moving my decimal point? That means I want to move each of these 3 places to the right. Move them all over 3 places. So that first one is going to be not 335. It's now going to be 3,000, right? So we're going to look at 3,000, 350 is equal to 2x plus 2,100. Now, for some of you, when you are looking at these, it doesn't matter that much which way you write it. But some of you, those decimals, they has problems for you. You don't put them in the right way. I don't care which way you solve it. I just want you to make sure you're aware that you can do this. Tonight's homework, I am going to have you eliminate your decimal. So on the top of the next page, we want to look at what should you be multiplying, because there's only 4 questions in tonight's homework. Some of you said, well, I already worked ahead and did these without eliminating. Well, now you're going to have to go back and redo them because I want you to show me that you could do this method, okay? So, what's the most I want to multiply everything here by? 10 to the second, so I want to take each of these times 100. That means I want to move my decimal, right? How many places? 2 to the right. So if I move this one 2 places to the right, I'm now going to have 350 equals 1.25, move it 2 places, is now going to be 125 x minus 2.7, when I move it 2 places, is now going to be 270. Sam, I need to get 125x by itself. What would you do? I want to get this variable part all by itself. Not yet. I got to get rid of this minus 270. We're going to add 270 on both sides. So on your calculators, you're going to add 270 and 350, right? When you added those together, Patrick, what did you end up with? 620 equals 125x, right? So now our next step, if I'm looking at that, Rajat, is going to be to do what?
Divide it by 1.5.
Yes, divide by the coefficient of x, which is 125. So we're dividing both by 125. And as I look at that, my answer then is going to be what, Leland? And we're going to keep it as a decimal because our problem started as a decimal, so we don't want to leave this fraction, so 4.96, okay? So when you're doing your homework tonight, you've got about 5 minutes or so, you are doing this page. So on the top, there are only 8 questions that you are looking at. Some of these fraction ones get a little ugly, but what I want you to do here is I want you to look at question number 1, and I want you to eliminate the decimal. And after today, I don't care which way you do it, if you want to leave the decimal in place. So what would I multiply everything in number 1 by? I'm going to multiply by 100, right? I'm moving the decimal 2 places to the right. How about number 3 when you multiply and moving every decimal? Again, 100. Now, this is the one where people will make a huge mistake. What number is in front of you? 1. So when I multiply this by 100, what's my new number here going to be? 602. And then people will put u. Well, what happens when you take u times 100? You're taking 100 times every single thing. You get 100u, right? So people forget and just put the ones that don't have decimals, they just leave them as the number. You have to take every single thing times 100, okay? When you get down to the bottom questions, you got to find that least common multiple. So I don't care if you write it behind the problem or in front of the problem, I need to know what are you multiplying everything by. So when I look at number 5, what is the least common multiple? My biggest number is 10. Can 5 go into 10? So 10 is my least common multiple, right? I'm taking everything times 10. Whereas in this problem, number 7, what's my least common multiple? Do 7 and 10 have anything in common? No, so my least common multiple is going to be 7 times 10 or 70. Put those over 1 because you're multiplying every single thing times 70. Okay? So, because